Deidra Moore worked as a public defender with the Legal Aid Society and then established her law office in New York. And now she is here to tell us about her recent book, From Me to You, The Power of Storytelling and Its Inherent Generational Wealth, an African-American story. Welcome, Deidra. I want to say it's Deidra Moore, John V.A.
You got it, David.
I got it correct,
yes,
right?
Yes, you did.
And I want to show this book so everybody can, I don't know if anyone can see it. If you can see this book at this point. There you go. From Me to You. I love it. I love it. So excited. We know each other professionally and personally as well. So it's an extra benefit for me to have you on the show. And let's just start a little bit about the book. Where was the inspiration? Where did it come from?
Well, first, let me say, David, thank you so much for having me on this show and sharing your platform to
Absolutely.
share this book that I like to refer to as my labor of love.
Right.
And so what inspired me to write the book was, I like to say, leadership, friendship, and our youth. And David, you would understand when I say that a lot of that inspiration came from the spaces and places held within the Rebolledo Country School, the school that my son attends. Right?
And just for the record, we both have sons at Riverdale, and we love the school, and I know they love the book, which makes me so happy.
Thank you so much for that. And in fact, they're using it as a part of the 5th grade course. So I so appreciate that, and I'm also grateful. So what inspired me to write the book is, as I tell the inspiration through our youth, I hope that the inspiration of our leadership and our friendship will reveal itself in that statement. So it was back in September of 2019 when my son, Justin, had occasion to participate in the Service Learning Club at the school, where they take the children into the community to help and show them what it is to engage and to engage in service to others, right? So on this particular trip, they went to the Hebrew Home, a nursing home here in New York State. And while at the Hebrew Home, they had the opportunity to engage a surviving Holocaust survivor. And while engaging the Holocaust survivor, they asked questions, they showed them where the branding was upon his body. But it was on the way back to the school bus where my son, Justin, and his 8-year-old peer, who happens to be a child of Jewish descent, they started talking to each other and sharing with each other what their families told them about the Holocaust and slavery. Now, these two 8-year-olds made a connection that adults don't do. And I was so inspired and impressed when I heard my son talking about how him and his peer were sharing with each other their respective knowledge about two complex topics. I was just inspired by our youth at that moment. But it was later that evening when I was getting Justin ready for bed, and he says, so Mom, so what's slavery really about? Oh my goodness, David. I thought it was too soon. Right. If I had on these pearls, I would have popped them. If I was on a chair, I would have fell over. Because I thought it was just a bit too soon, right? But what I said to him was that I'm going to make it a teachable moment for you. And I gave him some more information, of course. And what I did was I started searching my mind, my book resources, talking to other people who didn't really know what my thoughts were with respect to the question he posed. And I started realizing, you know what? I haven't found that book that really narrates this story, this complex story, a topic of slavery, the way that I wanted it narrated. I wanted it to not be traumatizing on every page. I wanted it to be accessible. And so what I did was I remembered a quote that a dear friend shared with the 3rd graders when I had them. I was a part of the Parents of Color Committee at the school, and I created this Phenomenal People with Phenomenal Stories speaker series, and I invited some people of color to come to the school and speak to each of the grades. So the 3rd grade had the opportunity to hear from Edgewood's Dr. Cott, a dear sister friend, and she shared with them what it was that inspired her to write her first book, Crick Crack. And what inspired her was a quote by Toni Morrison. And that quote reads, if there's a book you want to read, but it hasn't been written yet,
write it.
Then you must write it, right? And I said, wait a minute, I couldn't find what I wanted, so here pursued my journey to start writing this book.
Well, tell the viewers a little bit how you lay it out, because sure. it takes you from point A to point B to point C. It's very interesting the way you do it. Tell the viewers.
I appreciate that. The book is laid out. It's one book, and it's 3 parts, I like to say. The first part of the book speaks to diversity of people. That's in chapters 1 and 2 pretty much. And I illustrate the diversity of people by talking about this thing called the country spotlights that we do at the lower school. And I connected our son to the family and friends that we have in different parts of the world, right? So that's chapters 1 and 2. But then chapters 3 through, I think it's 14, speaks to what I like to say is the who, what, when, where, how, and why of that complex topic of slavery. It touches upon those from exploration to colonization down through to the revolution.
Did you get emotional when writing this book? Were there times that you had to take a pause and get yourself together again? Because it's probably a very emotional read.
It really was an emotional journey, but somehow it was cathartic for me because it helped me to address or deal with the oftentimes pain that's associated with sharing the story, and to share it with an 8-year-old. You can imagine how much
now
more
you're
painful
saying
it
it's almost
was.
required reading in 5th grade. At least at Riverdale, maybe it's some of the other schools it should be. What will students get out of the reading? What do you think they're going to come home and talk to their parents about? What do you think?
Well, for me, I think I would love it if kids will be inspired by hearing the stories of our ancestors and the lived experiences of our ancestors and how they gave of their blood, sweat, tears, and lives lost so that we can be free emotionally, physically, and mentally. It's about identity and self-worth as well. No matter who you are, it's important that you have identity and self-worth, because if you don't, it all goes for naught. Because to me, it's not just about having confidence and high self-esteem. It's about having identity and self-worth, because with that, you'll be able to enter any space and be able to repel naturally all the stereotypes, all the unconscious and conscious bias conduct of others. But when you have confidence and self-esteem, when you walk into certain spaces, when you're in that space, your confidence and self-esteem is gauged by who's in the room. They make you feel like you have a voice, you don't have a voice. So I want kids to walk away with having a sense of who they are, and to value the value of investing in yourself and learning about your history, because it all goes to making you that whole individual.
I think a lot of adults could learn from the book and investing in themselves. Would you agree?
I would leave that for them to decide, but absolutely.
Before we get into a little bit about your legal career, which I want to, where can we find the book? Because a lot of people are going to want to buy the book.
Thank you so much. Well, first, the book has recently been vetted and selected with the New York Public Library. So you can find it in the New York Public Libraries. You can also find it on my website, which is www.deidramoore.com. It's on Amazon. It's in Barnes & Nobles. It's at the Lit Bar, apparently. Apparently is on Target. So
it's everywhere.
So it's been ranging. It's been spreading. It's out in India. It's being spread about in India after undergoing an interview with a wonderful woman named Hasina Parvin. It's hopefully going to be getting into the hands of Nabda Mandela, which is the grandson of Nelson Mandela, who's carrying forward his grandfather's legacy. So it's just spreading and reverberating throughout.
Let's shift gears a second, a little bit to the legal profession.
Sure.
As we slowly move out of COVID into back into the courthouse and the courtrooms, do you feel that we're getting back to normal, or do we still have a ways to go?
Normal?
Whatever normal would be considered
for
the law Office of Court Administration. What do you think?
I definitely feel a return to seats in the chairs, or bodies in the chairs, as they coin that phrase. It's going to be a slow journey, because it's interesting. I don't know how I truly feel about the fact that we can now e-file a lot of things instead of having to go into court. I'm happy about that because it saves on travel time to go e-file things. However, there are extra layers that come with everything that seems. What used to take one step now takes five steps. So I don't know how happy I am about that. But no, I do feel the system is getting back on track, having had the pause that we had to all take. And I think they're doing a pretty good job with, surprisingly, with still having hearings and conferences and things.
Now,
virtually.
I know you do matrimonial law, you do trust and estate work, mental hygiene law. We've met on Article 81 cases and stuff. What seems to be the farthest thing from coming back to normal for you? Is it the matrimonial hearings? Is it some of the Article 81 hearings? What would you say is taking a while to get back to where it's supposed to be?
You know, that's a fair question because I have a varied practice.
Yeah.
I don't just practice in Bronx. I practice in Westchester, Manhattan, Bronx, Brooklyn. I even have a case or two in Staten Island. And it seems that, and I also have a varied subject matter. And I say that because when there's a lull in one area, it seems the other area picks up. So while I've been doing a lot of guardianship matters via conferences, virtual conferences, I've also been doing estate hearings virtually
You have?
as well. Yeah, absolutely, in different boroughs too. But with respect to matrimonial, I'll say that kind of is on the slow end of coming back to where it used to be. I don't know what that's really about. Maybe it's because not many people are going to court or seeking attorneys to file their divorces. Maybe they're reconciling while they're in COVID. I don't know. But I would say matrimonial cases haven't had that increase.
You think you have time to write a new book, maybe?
Well, it's funny you say that because we're about to release a coloring and activity book,
Okay.
along with an associated book, and hopefully that'll be out in the beginning part of the year, and then I'll turn my attention to possibly a novel that I have been setting my eyes on.
Should we give a nice shout out to Riverdale? What do you think?
Oh, absolutely. Riverdale Country School. I love it.
All good.
You know, all good. You know what I love about this school, this independent school, if I could say this really
Sure, of course.
quickly, is that, you know, oftentimes people talk about the independent schools and they all start sounding alike in the very beginning. They talk about having the rigorous academic routine, about having a diverse and inclusive space, and they talk about their service to community, right? But what distinguishes Riverdale is more than the 27 acres of beautiful land that it rests upon. It's more than the 44% of the diverse population in the student body that we speak of. What it is that I so respect Dominic Randolph for his leadership effort in seeing value in infusing the sense of belonging in these academic spaces. Did you hear what I just said?
Yep.
Infusing that sense of
Infusion, yep.
belonging in these academic
I would absolutely
competitive
agree with
spaces. You understand? So, and so that's what I most love about the school. You know, I'm a then and now kind of mom. I had a daughter who graduated some time ago, and then we have our son who's here now. So
love it.
I kind of knew the Riverdale then and now. So I have a lot of respect and appreciation.
We're going to leave it there.
Yeah, we will.
It's been wonderful having you. Deidra Moore, John VA. I love saying the whole thing.
Thank you so much,
You'll come back another
David.
time and visit us, right?
I look forward to it. Thank you for having me.
All right.